Yeah, that interview, huh? I don't know if you were one of those people under a rock, but or like the millions of people that tuned in at some point, obviously our American cousins got to see it earlier than we did. Thus, us Brits, we got to see it a day late. That doesn't seem fair. That's almost like the movies, isn't it? American movies always are shown in America first and seen here last, or at least sometime after, even though that's changed a little bit. But anyway, I'm meandering. If you saw that interview, boy, it was a doozy, right? So let me be very clear. I don't like talking about people on the right tone. I don't agree with bad-mouthing people. You're not going to get me gossiping, bad-mouthing, insulting, and denigrating people on this show. It just ain't going to happen. I speak about people in the public eye, mainly to kind of have understanding or to have an opinion about how we should maybe understand the situation, because it's something that's huge in the culture right now. I'm not that invested in Prince Harry and Meghan. I wish them all the best. I think I actually like them. I've always liked Harry since he was a little one, and I have a lot of respect for them as a couple. So I'm not really focusing on them per se as the hoopla around them and the nuclear fallout of the interview. It's a delicate one. Interesting how there's been so much backlash and so much reaction to the interview, which of course was always going to happen. So, in case you are one of those people that live under a rock and you don't know what's happened, Prince Harry is son to Prince Charles, who is the son of our Queen of England, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. When she passes on, the crown will go to her son, her firstborn, Prince Charles, and he has two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. I'm giving you a quick cliff notes of the royal family. William is third in line. And one point, Harry was fourth in line because they're brothers. But as soon as William married and had his children, they surpass him. So they're above him. And of course, so he went from being the kind of the number two of the family in terms of Charles's children to now like number 4 or something like that. He goes down the line with each child that they have. And I believe Prince William has 3 children. So, but he still is a prince of Britain. Titles, at least up until recently, with all the prestige and titles that come with that. Him marrying Meghan, at the time Markle, from Suits and other shows, a biracial actress who is involved in a lot of causes, very outspoken, very much a feminist and speaking for the rights of women and environmental rights. And from what I understand, very passionate and very committed. Of course, they met, fell in love, and she herself says she was a bit naive to what she was getting into. Me being a Brit, I've grown up with the royal family, and I know exactly what she was getting into, good, bad, and ugly. That's not bashing, that's just facts. I was around throughout all of the run and the situation as an observer, as a citizen, watching Harry's mother, Princess Diana, be chased by paparazzi, having bad relations with the royal family, them having an epic falling out, and her untimely tragic death. I remember it like it was yesterday. I think there was a special place in our heart for Prince Harry and William as a result of the sad, tragic passing of their mother. It was needless. She was hounded and chased by paparazzi, and that caused the accident. But years have gone by. Prince Charles went from being public enemy number 1 because he cheated on the marriage, had an affair and kind of treated her not so kindly. So he was very unpopular for a minute. The nation turned on him for a long while. And I think that was a bit of an upset because Diana was known as Queen of Hearts. The country loved her. It's hard to realise if you weren't around at the time just how much the world, not just the nation, loved Princess Di. And a lot of that goodwill and love went on to her sons. Harry is probably the one that people remind the most of his mother. And in many ways, history is possibly repeating itself. Again, I'm just giving context to the situation, not trying to say that I am, not trying to take sides, but to let you know why this is a big deal, at least in England. And I know in America, they covered it very extensively as well. So Meghan coming into this situation, she was coming into our nation's first family, really. And with all of the fairy tale elements, a bit like coming to America. But what happens is you have the fairy tale wedding, but then the realities and the intricacies set in days, weeks, months, years afterwards. So here's the thing, how I see it. There were always going to be issues with Meghan coming into the royal family. There was echoes of Harry's, or the Queen rather, her uncle, original royal member to come into this kind of problems was the Queen's uncle, who should have been king, but he abdicated for love with an American, Wallace Simpson, and a divorcee. At the time, especially the king's role of being head of the church, there was no way he was going to be allowed to marry this divorcee, plus she was American. So he chose love. He gave up the crown to be with the one he loved. That's how his brother ended up taking the crown, and subsequently his daughter is our queen, and the rest is history. So it wouldn't be the first time that a senior royal member of the family chose love over that responsibility. But it looked like Prince Harry was trying to make it work. Meghan was making it work. They were meant to be the modern rejuvenation to the royal family that the world needed. They were the millennial version of royalty that people could be down with. People loved Prince Harry. In the main, he fought for his country. He was a bit cheeky. He had his mother's twinkle in his eye. And Meghan was this beautiful biracial actress from America who was a modern woman. She wasn't going to be silent and be suppressed and just have a pretty face. But what happened is when they actually got into the mix of things, all of a sudden it was like, yeah, we have a script for you to follow, and we'd very much like for you to follow it. Maybe that's my interpretation, but listen, it's quite obvious there are obligations and duties in being part of the royal family. The Queen, who I have a lot of respect for, pretty much puts her duty first. She's very much from that old school mentality. What seemingly was the problem, as shared with Oprah Winfrey by Harry and Meghan, was that they were prepared to do their duty. They were prepared to go along with those roles, those fixed kind of roles and expectations. What they were not prepared for was the way the press savagely was attacking his wife. And listen, I like to be a little bit nuanced in right tone. It's neither black or white, but sometimes in the middle. But you know what? Sometimes it is black and white. I read those newspapers. They went for that girl. They went straight for the jugular. Not just Piers Morgan, more about him later, but the press really went for her. I saw how the soft articles about Princess Kate compared to the very harsh articles about Meghan, showing shade on her family, on the white side of her heritage, them kind of being a little bit, we call chav in the UK. You might say redneck, or just not being very high in status. Then conversations about maybe the slave ancestry on her mother's side, and showing obviously questions about what's that going to look like? What could Harry's children potentially look like? And we all did it, even in black circles. We were like, I wanted to even have a ginger afro. That kind of stuff. So we've all been guilty to some way in speculation. But that goes to another bombshell. It's very different to wonder out of curiosity what their child would look like, as opposed to showing concern. Concern being the operative word, meaning like, oh, and not just what the child would look like, concern to how dark the child would look like. Now, everyone is jumping on Meghan about that, saying she's playing the race card. And I guess she's playing the suicide card. But it was Harry that heard it. And it was Harry that relayed it. So is he a liar? Is he lying? Why would he throw his family under the bus on something like that that's purely, blatantly not true? But anyway, I'm getting carried away. The love affair with Meghan was only skin deep, in that she's an attractive woman, very attractive, and had a little bit of Hollywood glamour, and was confident. So they wanted to wear it down. They wanted to literally strip her of those things to put her in her place, and you could see that from the coverage. To flip it on the other side, yeah, Meghan also is very much a progressive, very much a leftist, and I think there's elements of that I find a little bit questionable or problematic in some of the way that they, some of the sort of the progressive left can be a bit hardcore. And there were issues like talking about the environment, but jetting on planes and stuff like that. Listen, was not saying that the royal couple were not without critique. No one is totally without critique, even Her Majesty the Queen. But anyway, the issue that they were raising was the fact that they were not protected from the press, and the British tabloids are renowned for their savagery, renowned for their thirst for blood, ripping people apart. It's their shtick. Remember, Piers Morgan was the editor of the Daily Mirror? More about that later. They are used to, they're world renowned for ripping into people, and then if they get sued, having to pay out and stuff like that. And they have a deal, I believe, with the royal aides to say, maybe this story, but not that story. So the royal couple intimated that in many ways they were thrown to the wolves and thrown under the bus. It's interesting that there is a very high profile royal situation going down that hasn't been really covered that well recently. And in some ways it's like, maybe there's a little bit of bait and switch. We don't want that story to be tackled, so we'll throw you another one to throw the dogs off. Do you know what I mean? The whole Prince Andrew situation is out there in public, so I'm not washing dirty linen. And again, a man has a right to a day in court. He could be completely innocent. But isn't it strange how the media works? And I used to work in media, how you can literally diffuse one story by magic trick. Watch the hand, watch this hand while I do something with this hand. Literally put a new focus on the table. I still don't know what Meghan did so heinous to deserve such scorn and hate. Marrying a prince? So it seems from their testimony that, again, the royal palace and their aides were not present to give their side of the story. So again, I'm entertaining that this could be very subjective. We hear the words Oprah say, your truth. So it could be their version of events. I'm open like that. But what was clear is that Harry's one of the most famous people on the planet. He's marrying a woman who's biracial and having, ergo, children who have a bit of colour in them. There are white supremacist groups. Whether you think politicians or presidents or celebrities are racist or not is irrelevant. There are actual hardcore white supremacist groups out there who say that they want to put a bullet in your wife's head and your children. So they're one of the most famous couples on the planet. Because of their status change in terms of their ranking in the royal family, their security detail was removed. But at the same time, the press are free to report where they live. Say what now? Oh? G-Scoops! My Scooby-Doo impression there. So anyone can come and take a pop shot at the royal couple when they were in Canada or when they were in America, because you now know where they live and you now know they don't have much security. Like, what the actual heck? How is that? Listen, as a man, I'm a father of 3. Wife of 1, father of 3. My primary duty as a husband and father is to protect my family. I don't care what the situation. Someone intrudes into my house, I will protect my family. I will do whatever it takes lawfully, but whatever it takes. I don't understand how people can't empathize or sympathize with Harry, that he was like, we got to get out of Dodge. They're gunning for my wife. We're trying to remove ourselves from a toxic situation but not give up our responsibilities, try and do a bit of a flexi thing. He said, no, cool. And we're taking your security. Oh, not so cool. Archie's not going to get any status or role or like title. And we've asked about his skin colour before he's even born. Really not cool. And by the way, Harry, we're disinheriting you. You're not going to have the money from our kitty anymore. You just have to live on what your mum left you. Whoa. So now he has to protect his family without any of the privileges and the protection that he got from being born into a family he didn't ask to be born into. You know? He never asked to be born a prince. Neither did Archie. Well, technically not a prince, but you know what I mean. And now he's thinking, right, we're on our own, like any responsible adult would do with a family. We got to make us some coin. So he went talking to Netflix and looking to make business deals and stuff like that. Again, why is that a surprise? People complained about, him and Meghan pouncing off the British government, pouncing off the royal family. They want to be part-timers because they were really being bashed. But anyway, so now they thought, you know what? We paid off what the wedding was. Apparently they paid that off with this deal. We made some deals, made some moves, so I can protect my family and we can live because we've been disinherited. Again, I don't understand what the problem is. Again, it's one-sided. So maybe it didn't go that way, but I can only dissect what we've been presented and say whether I think what was presented was fair or not. I'm not saying this is the truth and this is the only side. What I'm saying is this was what has been presented. And what I'm also saying is most of the people that have a problem with the interview have a problem with what was presented as opposed to saying, whoa, hold the horses. There might be another side, calling them liars. So Harry, very uncomfortable in his body language, disclosed that he was a rock and a hard place. He had to make some moves. They had to move country to have peace of life. And he had to make some business deals because they were disinherited and were given nothing. Meghan talks about her mental health and how she was contemplating suicide. In this country, we had a very popular TV presenter called Caroline Flack. She may have not been an angel either because, she was in a famous case where there was a bit of a domestic situation potentially with her and her boyfriend. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that's what the press presented. And things went very dark for her. They really hounded her and made her life a misery. And she ended up taking her life tragically. It was very sad. I think of her family and friends, and it was a very painful period in our popular culture here in Britain. But it seemed that no one actually learned their lesson because as a result of her tragic passing, there was a campaign saying, be kind. If you have nothing nice to say, I was taught by my mum and dad, if you have nothing kind to say, don't say anything at all. Obviously, there's times when you might say things that ruffle feathers, but point being, they really savaged that poor woman. And she just couldn't take it. So it seems that we've not learned anything from that situation. This same Great Britain that was saying, be kind about Caroline Flack after the fact that she died, they should have been saying it before, but here we are throbbing at the bit, the taste of blood for Meghan Markle. Even after that disclosure, there was no sympathy. What, from the tabloids? Hey, no way. They won't be satisfied perhaps until she I won't go there. You know? There was calls of, we don't believe her, she's lying, she's looking for sympathy, drama queen, and playing the race card. So that's how the fairy tale ends, folks. Of course, the royal family have come out in a press statement saying they love Harry, Meghan, Archie, and they support them, and they remember things a bit differently. Particularly about the race issue, because it was one senior member, not the Queen and not Prince Philip, but they didn't say who. And that's now the red herring. People are trying to out who was the royal member of family who was potentially racist, missing the point of Archie perhaps being treated not very fairly and not truly like one of the family. Tragic where a woman could feel so alone, especially when her and Prince Harry represent mental health charities. And the fact that apparently she was told she couldn't get help from professionals because it would look bad on the family. I'm not surprised that the issue of how dark Archie would be would come up, because concern could have been concern that his life would be very difficult, but I don't think they would have phrased it that way. They're not stupid. I think they can read between the lines and understand what was said. Obviously, they're not telling us all the details because perhaps it's even worse. If that's what they were prepared to share, can you imagine the parts that Harry is not? Just saying. Something that we need to look into here. Maybe there is some need of some reform and some issues there. You know, so it's kind of like those who love the royal couple are probably ardent defenders. Maybe at times not even seeing some of the flaws or the areas of genuine, legitimate critique. But those who hate Harry and Meghan, boy, do they hate them. Piers Morgan, anyone? I'm going to dovetail quite quickly into that in a second. So I don't know whether this was the wisest decision to do this interview, because it's almost like torpedoing everything. But it seems that they were in a situation where already there may have been no turning back, that the toxicity was at fever pitch, and maybe this is an attempt to clear their name because they've been cast as such villains. And things like, of all timing, why are they doing this when Prince Philip is ill in hospital? Prince Philip is in hospital. I hope he makes a swift recovery. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. The other argument is, why are they talking about this during COVID? We've had COVID non-stop for a year, folks. The idea that this somehow, for a couple of days, is distracting from the serious of COVID is just an excuse because you don't like them. Tell the truth. We've been hearing COVID news every day for a year. There's no shortage of COVID. And those people were not really saying that around the stuff coverage of Trump. Love him or hate him, there was a lot of coverage of Trump, and that was arguably taking some airtime away from COVID. But people weren't saying, oh, stop talking about the president or saying this or that about him or the presidential election. Just talk about COVID, not to the same energy. So don't be disingenuous, folks. In conclusion, my hope for this is that somehow behind closed doors, this is an awakening. This is a wake-up call to the royal family, that they will do the work needed to heal the divide, to heal the rift, to reconcile, and maybe us less royal, normal families will be inspired by this airing of grievance and say, you know what, life is too short. I think that would be better for everyone, don't you think?